Hi everyone, welcome to Bedah Buku. So, when people in PEKUMA ask me if I could recommend a book for economics students to read, and only one book, I thought, and it was a very difficult decision, but I decided to recommend this book. And I think it is one of the must-reads for any economics student, be it local or international educated. So this book is called The Colour of Inequality, Ethnicity, Class, Income and Wealth in Malaysia. And it's written by Dr. Muhammad Abdul Khalid, who is a Penang-born economist. So let's talk about why you should read this book Firstly, I think that itself, what we learn in class is purely theoretical. We do not learn the depth of specific cases of inequality, of poverty, and while it's good to know the fundamental basics and the theoretical basis to all economic theories, I think it's also good to apply them and to see how people can tell us the reality of what it happens outside. So then the second question that we get is, why read about inequality? You can read about government taxation, you can read about GDP, but why inequality? Because the truth is, we all strive for growth. Every economist dreams of a balanced growth, but the truth is, growth does not come equal, not for every one of us, and there will be people left behind. And as economists, as future policymakers, it's very important for us to be aware not only of our privilege, but also how we can do our part in terms of formulating policies and who are these target groups that we should not fail to focus on. So reading about inequality is very important. So why is it that this book and the authors are must-reads for us? So I feel like Dr. Muhammad Abdul Khalid has an acute understanding of how inequality works. The first thing is, so you should know that this book was written by him, but the foreword was done by a man called Professor Emeritus Just Farland. So he is actually a Finnish economist who wrote the foreword for this book. So I'll give you a brief introduction to who this man is. So Professor Emeritus Dr. Just Farland, he's actually the then director of Harvard University Advisory Services Malaysia project, and he's one of the key architects responsible for the formulation of the new economic policy NEP in 1971. So it's very interesting that when you read the foreword of this book, and it's written by the man who's one of the key architects of the new economic policy, and later on you will read how the actual author itself may argue that the NEP is not necessarily good. So I think even in the first few pages, you are given an introduction to something, and then it's rebutted again by the book. And it opens up your mind even if you read only 10 pages of this book. So yes, so that's the reason why you should read this book on the basis of the author alone. So allow me to introduce what the first few chapters talks about before we get into the finer details. So actually, the foreword obviously praises the progress that has taken place due to choosing race-based policies to solve race-based problems. So it says that although Malaysia has made great strides in reducing poverty and inequality, especially among ethnic groups, from 1970 to 1990, which was the implementation of the NEP, the wealth gap remains high post-1990, and it has remained almost at the same level for 20 years. And it also then goes on to talk about relative income gap between urban and rural households, and that it is the same in 2012 as it was in the year that Malaysia gained its independence from the British in 1957. So in one line alone, I can tell you that you've learned something new. So if you read one line and you learn something new, what if you read the book? Just by reading the book alone, maybe you'll learn a lot more. So let's take a break before we get into the contents of the book, besides just the foreword. and I will guide you through the recommendations in this book in terms of policy, as well as the thought-provoking parts that I would highly recommend reading if you were only speed reading. So see you after the break! The first part, actually the first chapter itself, it discusses why we study wealth and how is it different when we study wealth versus when we study income. And at first part I thought, well, that's the same thing, isn't it?
I kinda like you.
Welcome back, and if you're still here, thank you for still watching me, and let me review some of the more thought-provoking parts of this book that I find extremely interesting. So the first part, actually the first chapter itself, it discusses why we study wealth and how is it different when we study wealth versus when we study income. And at first part I thought, well, that's the same thing, isn't it? Don't we study that, income is the income theory in macroeconomics too, and also why national income is important and how to calculate national income. So I thought, well, it's the same thing. Wealth equals income, money is money. But then this book brings out something new to me. So the first difference between income and wealth is that wealth generates more purchasing power. Those with more wealth inevitably have more power over resource allocation in a market economy, as wealth exerts and influences the supply of capital. So I didn't think about it at first, but then this book made me think, and then I read further on it, and it turns out that yes, wealth indeed does bring out more purchasing power to you. And the second part is where it gets more interesting. So it notes that wealth remains more stable across generations compared to income. And if you think about it, well, that's true. I mean, the phrase old money and new money comes from somewhere, right? So it turns out that actually wealth remains more stable because wealth itself is something that is transferable, whereas income is not transferable. So say that your grandparents were extremely high income earners, but your parents decided to take up a job that doesn't necessarily generate that much income. So your grandparents can transfer their wealth, but you cannot transfer their income to your parents. Your parents cannot decide to do the exact same job that your grandparents did. And that's very interesting. So the second part, there's 6 parts by the way. So the second part is that ownership of wealth is a significant source of income itself. So wealth generates income. So if we only look at wealth and income as the same thing, which we may have because of theoretical basis, it's actually not. So the third thing is, wealth owners have a different access to credit compared to the non-wealthy. So say that you meet someone who inherited a large amount of wealth versus someone who earns a high income but has not inherited a large sum of wealth. So the person with wealth is able to take up a loan because of a collateral, whereas the person who has a high income may not necessarily be able to access the same amount of credit. So in turn, this hinders their opportunities of opening a business, anything that involves a large sum of credit. So actually, wealth opens up doors that even high income not necessarily does. So fourthly, wealth gives its owner political and economic power that is independent of income. you can influence people using wealth but not necessarily using income. And also, it says that wealth provides security, as a wealthier household can better survive interruptions in income or expensive emergencies. And 6, particularly for a non-homogeneous society, we are looking at society right now, where race is intricately tied with social, political, and economic process, the unequal distribution of wealth, not income necessarily, could create serious tensions that leads to social and political conflicts such as the May 13 riot and to a lesser extent the Operasi Lala. So when I read this part alone, it challenged the way I view money and social economy and social demography and how we distribute wealth rather than how we distribute income. And it just fundamentally shifts the way I view inequality. So moving on from that, the other arguments that this book has introduced to me that truly provoke my thoughts is naturally how the race-based policies work and to what extent they are successful. So arguably, you have a lot of proponents who argue that the new economic policy was a really good policy. It did what it was supposed to do, and it was what we needed at that point of time. See, this book argues it out in a graphical form for you. So there are graphs where it shows to you the distribution, the racial composition of Malaya, and then it also then introduces to you how the occupational composition works, and then it introduces to you equity ownership in the corporate sector by ethnic group. So you see, we can have very biased and maybe emotional takes on a lot of economic issues, and economic itself is subjective. But data alone doesn't lie. So in this book, it highlights to you to what extent was the NEP successful in improving racial economic identification through the equity ownership in the corporate sector by ethnic group. So using numbers, you can see the actual increase and the actual fact whether the NEP works or not and who benefits the most among the ethnic groups. I'm not going to give spoilers here, so if you want to find out, you have to read it on your own. So the next important argument that this book brought forward for me is meritocracy. See, in theory, we always naturally want to defend meritocracy. But this book brought up the factors of meritocracy and how it impedes social mobility of the poor, and also, it talks about what happens after the meritocracy system was removed in January 2003. So you would think of a certain argument, but this book actually challenges conventional thought on it. And on the last part, actually, the book recommends to you policies that the author feels would improve the situation. So among the policies that they cover is asset-based policies, taxation, and anti-discrimination law. So we know that among those three, the most sensationalized one, as we are recording right now, is anti-discrimination. So if you want to find out how anti-discrimination law can affect the way we look at inequality, especially race-based inequality in Malaysia, then check out this book. So we're coming to an end to our recording session. I hope I've picked enough interest in this book for you. And if there's any book I would recommend, it's definitely this book. And every economic student should read this. So I hope you check this out. Thank you for listening in to Bedah Buku, and tune in for the next episode.